Good morning. Welcome to the garden. I'm glad you're all here with us on this core day. Just a little bit warmer, it might help, but it's a great day. I'm glad you're here. Back in 1970, Art Buchwald wrote these words, "And man created the plastic bag and the tin and aluminum can and the cellophane wrapper and the paper plate. And this was good because man could then take his automobile and buy all his food in one place, and he could save that which was good to eat in the refrigerator and throw away that which had no further use. And soon the earth was covered with plastic bags and aluminum cans and paper plates and disposable bottles, and there was nowhere to sit down or walk. And man shook his head and cried, 'Look at this god-awful mess.'" Now, compare that to this from Genesis. God spoke, "Earth, generate life, every sort and kind, cattle and reptiles and wild animals, all kinds." And there it was, wild animals of every kind, cattle of all kinds, every sort of reptile. I wish they'd left out the reptiles. Every sort of reptile and bug. God saw that it was good. And God spoke, "Let us make human beings in our image, make them reflecting our nature, so they can be responsible for the fish in the sea and birds in the air, the cattle, and yes, earth itself, and every animal that moves on the face of earth." God looked over everything that had been made. It was good, so very good. It was evening, it was morning, day 6. Need I say more? It's fairly obvious the contrast between the two of those, is it not? The story from Genesis is the delight in the creation, and God says that it's good, and it's very good, and that we're to be responsible for taking care of that which blesses us, this entire world. The Art Buchwald one is a little different from that. It tells of the ways that we are slowly but surely destroying this planet on which we live, and sometimes it's not so slowly. All we have to do is look around us and we can see some of the devastating things that have happened over the course of years. For example, at one point, 14% of the earth was covered with rainforest. Today, that is less than 6%. It is now estimated that that rainforest may be totally gone within the next 40 years. Every single day, we are losing 137 species of plants, animals, and insects. In the U.S. alone, in a single year, our U.S. factories spew out all kinds of toxic chemicals into the air, into the land, and into the water. That's caused Jeremy Rifkin to say, "We're finally going to get the bill for the industrial age. If the projections are right, it's going to be a big one, the ecological collapse of the planet." Those are dire consequences that he's talking about. And how did this all come to be? Of course, we know some of the statistics. We hear about it. We've read it all. But you know, there are some who put part of the blame on Christianity, or maybe I should say on a certain version of Christianity. Let me explain what I mean by that. As you well know, there's a huge spectrum when it comes to theological perspectives on faith and on who God is and what God is like. And there is something that in theological terms is referred to as eschatology. Now, eschatology has to do with the end times. And the version of Christianity that is being accused of being partially responsible for the destroying of the earth is the kind that says that what happens here doesn't matter, that we're all about eternal salvation, and everything is focused on after our life ends, and there's no care and attention focused on living in the here and now. And that particular version of Christianity is also quite suspicious of science and scientific discoveries that have become known over the years. All we have to do is look at that battle between creationism and evolution to know that that conversation continues. But that's not all of Christianity, it's a portion of Christianity. And I hope you realize that that's not where the garden is. The garden believes it matters what we do in the here and now. It matters how we treat one another, and it matters how we treat our world. And we want to recognize that and honor that and respect the world in which we live. Now, I guess that's why we usually try to observe and celebrate Earth Day. You know, Earth Day began back in 1970. And it began here in the U.S., but it has, it's now a worldwide thing. 175 countries actually observe and celebrate Earth Day and sometimes a whole Earth Week. And they do all kinds of things, and it's made a difference, it said, over the years. Things have changed since 1970. Lots more people are recycling now than have ever recycled before. We have alternative forms of energy that are making a difference for people. It's said that 65% of acid rain levels have decreased over these years since 1970, and the depletion of the ozone layer is under control at this point. So improvements are happening because our attention has been focused on the need to care for the earth. But there are still more challenges ahead. And who's going to deal with those? The Bible passage from Genesis makes it clear. God spoke, "Let us make human beings in our image, make them reflecting our nature so they can be responsible for the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the cattle, and yes, earth itself, and every animal that moves on the face of the earth." We are to be responsible. The word that's often used for that responsibility is to be a steward. We're to be a steward of the earth and take good care of that because it's been entrusted to our keeping. We've been asked to take care of it and to improve it and to hold on to the beauty and to make sure that it continues to be a good place in which to live. To be a good steward means that probably every one of us needs to look at our attitudes and our behaviors when it comes to dealing with the earth and with the environment. The Dalai Lama has said that it's important that we learn to treat the earth with respect and that we look at our deepest values and live in ethical and loving ways when it comes to creation. Every one of us has responsibility for this. It's not somebody else's job. It's yours and it's mine. It's our responsibility to take care of this earth. And yet that's something we shy away from, or we find it inconvenient or not comfortable to try to do. In fact, I'm not sure how much things have changed since 1988 when William Ruckelshaus, who was a former EPA administrator, was quoted in the Wall Street Journal as saying this: "You go into a community and they will vote 80% to 20% in favor of a tougher Clean Air Act. But if you ask them to devote 20 minutes to having their car emissions inspected, they will vote 80 to 20 against it. We are a long way off in this country from taking individual responsibility for the environmental problem." Well, we don't want to be a long way off. We want to move closer. We do want to take responsibility for the environment. And for that to happen, it means that we need to really re-examine our deepest values. And we need to ask ourselves some really tough questions. Questions like, is it all about material gain at any price? Or is there something more precious to us than that? Are we willing to be inconvenienced ever so little in order to do something that can make a difference for future generations? You and I will have to ask that question. There is an environmental problem. We don't need to throw up our hands in despair, or we don't need to deny that it exists. It does exist. And we can do something about it. Every single one of us can make a difference. And some of the ways we can do it are really small ways. Let me give you what probably is a silly example. And this is a McCoy thing. When I brush my teeth in the morning or in the evening, sometimes I get a little absent-minded and I start daydreaming. And I'm brushing away, and then I'll realize that the water's been running the whole time. Now, water is a precious commodity. It's in limited supply. And there are people in this world who would die for and literally are dying because they don't have good, fresh, clean water. We can sacrifice that. We can turn the faucet off when we don't need it. The same thing when we're washing our hands. There are all of those kinds of things we can pay attention to. It's a silly little thing, but it can make more of a difference if we all did it than we could possibly imagine it would make. Of course, when we run errands, we probably should combine them and just make one trip, so rather than make several trips and use car and all that kind of stuff. Better yet, we can walk or ride a bike if we're set to do that. And that would make a difference. And it also would improve our health in the process. We can certainly recycle, and more people are recycling. People are getting into composting. Now, Beth shared something with me that I was not aware of. There is something called Meatless Monday that's going on. It's a movement out here, and it's trying to encourage folks like us to refrain from eating meat one day a week. Now, there are a couple reasons for that. One is that it's probably better for us health-wise, and the second one is that it can make a difference with our environment. And let me give you just one example, one of the statistics that they mention on their website. They say that it takes 1,850 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of beef. 1,850 gallons of water for 1 pound of beef. It takes 39 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of vegetables. So you can see the difference it can make. And it's worth trying. It's worth trying. And some of you might want to do that. You see, the important thing for us to recognize is that this earth needs our loving care. It needs respect. It needs attention. And it's up to us to do that. Nobody else is going to. We have to do it. Each one of us has to play our role. And so, if you're willing to do that, I would like to invite you to share with me in this pledge. Let's say the first line together, and then I'll read the next 3 lines of each stanza, and then we'll say the first line together again. It's on screen. Please join me. We join with the earth and with each other to bring new life to the land, to restore the waters, to refresh the air. We join with the earth and with each other to renew the forest, to care for the plants, to protect the creatures. We join with the earth and with each other to celebrate the seas, to rejoice in the sunlight, to sing the song of the stars. We join with the earth and with each other to recreate the human community, to promote justice and peace, to remember our children. We join with the earth and with each other. We join together as many and diverse expressions of one loving mystery for the healing of the earth and the renewal of all life. Amen and amen.